my birthday's
Yes.
thing? Okay.
Yep. Well, good evening, Trekkies and Trekkers around the globe. Welcome to Trek Talk, and this is episode 616. I'm your most excellent host, Uncle Jim. We've got a great show planned for you guys tonight, so stick around. Let's cue the intro, and we'll dive right in. And why isn't it the intro playing? It played before. There we go.
Spock's beard, Lorca's acting very weird. Captain Pike, Sisko's wife, Klingons and the afterlife. Boimler, Tendy's dog, Ransom is very hard. Spore Drive, Black Alert, Giorgio has gone berserk. Feature Batleth, Edward is an idiot. Spock is dead, Worf is wed, Chekhov's wearing red. Data's cat, Kempak's fat, Q has had enough of that. Beam me up, make it so, everybody let's go. We talk about the series. You can join us live by picking up your phone now. We talk about the series. We're coming to you on the streaming services now. We talk about the series. Comics, books, and games, we go beyond the show now. We talk about the series. Come and join us as we sit and chat and we go on and on and on and on.
Well, good evening, Trekkies and Trekkers around the globe. This is live, and that's why we have these little debacles like that. I tested the theme song before the show, and it worked fine. And when it came time to go live, it didn't. It's those gremlins. What can I tell you? As I said, I'm your most excellent host, Uncle Jim. Welcome to Trek Talking. I want to introduce you guys to my awesome Trek experts. We'll start off with Eric. Eric's out in Portland. How you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing pretty good, man. Back in the saddle. Had a couple of weeks vacation. Got to spend it with family over the new year, and just had to adjust those unobserved glue-on cores to make sure I got back in one piece. And here I am.
Ready for some Trek talking.
Absolutely.
And we also have David, my miracle worker, my Mr. Scotty, and he's also out in Portland. I think it's the water. How you doing, David?
I forgot to bring my water. Oops.
That's okay. You got the warp core, though, right?
Yeah, okay. Some warp core fluid.
And also we have with us, Paul's not with us, my other Portland contingent. He'll be with us again next week, hopefully. But we have out in Las Vegas, we have our very own Charles. How you doing tonight, Charles?
Jim, feel a little bit like
excellent.
a EMH that's flickering a little bit, but hanging in there.
I know
Don't look directly at Charles.
I know
you'll have a seizure.
just a tiny bit. Just a little bit. That's okay. Maybe we can edit that out later. I don't know. We'll get Scotty to work his magic. So tonight we're going to be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Fissure Quest. Next week we're going to be doing the new Next Generation. That'll wrap up Star Trek Lower Decks. And then we're going to be talking to Tim Russ, Mr. Tuvok himself. If you have any questions for Tim, please head over to our Trek Talking page at trektalking.com. Click on the little blue talkback mic, which you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner. Leave your message for Mr. Russ, and we will play it live on the show and have him answer it. So please do that. Not only that, you can visit trektalking.com, and there's all kinds of great stuff there. You can help support the podcast. We have a new Patreon page, thanks to Charles. Trek Talking Podcast, lots of posts, including extras for our members, and our membership fees start at only $2 a month. Come on, guys, $2 a month. I will say one thing. We are now doing video as well as audio. The only place you're going to be able to see our beautiful faces, our gorgeous faces, our for radio faces only, is over on our Patreon page. We will be posting the videos there. You can listen to the audio pretty much everywhere. And I do post little minute clips from the show that you can see. But if you want to see the whole show, you have to have it over to our Patreon page. Trying to say that 3 times fast. Head over to our Patreon page, become a member, and then you can watch the complete show, video and all. And we're going to have some other special shows showing up over there for members only. So if you want to see the full show, you'll have to head over to Patreon and become our member. Our Facebook page is still in AI limbo. Believe it or not, Lynn from Facebook called me on Christmas morning. That's right, Christmas morning, and told me that they're still trying to work on why the AI doesn't like us because they don't want to. What she explained to me is the they don't want to turn the page back on, just have the AI take it back down. So they're trying to figure out what it is that the AI doesn't like and fix it so that when they put the page live again, it's not going to immediately be taken down. And I can get that. But come on, people, it's been 2 months, Facebook. Get your heads out of your asses and fix the damn thing already. Come on. So that's why our Facebook page is still down. It's that damn AI that they've hired. It just doesn't know what it's doing. So anyways, as I already said, we're going to have Tim Russ on January 16th. So if you're a fan of Tim, you definitely want to head over to trektalking.com and leave a question for him. We do ask on our Facebook page, I'll post our fan shout outs and ask you guys where you're listening from. I also do our polls there. Since Facebook AI is being dinky, I've had to be creative. So you can find poll questions and all the things that you used to find in one place, which was on our Facebook page, all over the place, like on Instagram, like on Tumblr, like on Blue Sky, and
Who knows?
It's everywhere.
Could be almost anywhere.
Those links those links where you can find us, you can find on my personal Facebook page, because I'm using that as a pseudo Trek Talking page for the time being until the AI gets us fixed up. So you can still participate in our polls and tell us where you're listening from, just like you always did. You just got to dig a little deeper and look a little harder. It's not all in one place conveniently at your fingertips, because this new Facebook AI really sucks. So without any further ado, Eric, would you like to get us started with this week's fan shout-outs?
I sure would, and thank you, fans, for sticking with us as we go through Facebook limbo with an AI that hates us. I feel like we're all going to get there someday. Eventually, AI will hate us all. But today is not that day, so our very first fan shout-out this week goes out to Klaus Thiel Klenner, who's saying hello to us from Deutschland, Germany, and sending us that live long and prosper, and a nice little fancy emoji there, which I'm absolutely positive is what grabbed Jim's attention. Thank you, Klaus, for supporting our podcast, and good Abend to you. Luis Hario, we are saying hello to you, and he is saying hello to us from the Milky Way, in the Orion Arm, Sol, third planet from the sun, also London, England, one of my favorite cities on the planet, also sending us a live long and prosper hand and a little planetary symbol there. Luis Hario, thank you so much for saying hello to us. We really do appreciate the support from all of our listeners just across the pond. Also saying hello this week to Michelle Rousseau, who's saying hello to us from Angri, Italy. Italy is also a fantastic place to be on this planet. And Michelle, I'm sure you know that. I don't need to tell you what you already know, but thank you so much for supporting our podcast, and live long and prosper to you. And last on my list is Alfonso Antonio Criales Bilbao, who's saying hello to us from La Paz, Bolivia. And Alfonso, guess what, buddy? You are the first Trek Talking fan to say hello to us from Bolivia. So thank you so much for adding one more country to our list. Pretty exciting, Charles, eh?
Yep, definitely, Eric. Let's start off with a warm greeting to James Webb from Indiana. Welcome, James. Top fan, and I don't think this is their real name, Doc from Podcast Heroes of Science Fiction and Fantasy from Northern California. Welcome. Top fan Merrill Jenkins from Cedar City, Montana. Welcome, Merrill. And last on my list, welcome Greg Carroll from Oklahoma. We hope Greg is okay. David, who's on your list?
Yeah, I would like to say thank you and welcome to a top fan, James Robinson from Lindo, Texas. Hope you're actually having a fun time out there. And next on my list is David Boucher from Minnesota, my hometown. And next on my list is a from Washington State, Roxanne Waters. And I have another top fan, Jeffrey Wilson from Wooster, Ohio. Thank you all for participating, and yeah, I guess I'll pass this on to Paul. But since Paul's not here, have we decided who's going to do it?
I think that's me.
I think it's going to fall to Eric.
That's
All right.
right.
Because I'm no Eric and I'm definitely no Paul.
Well, hello as well this week to top fan Samantha Rawana, who's saying hello to us from Basingstoke, Hampshire, in England. Another one of those supporters just across the pond, proudly flying that Union Jack flag. Thanks, Samantha, for listening to our podcast. Top fan Rajit Sengal is saying hello to us from New Delhi in India. What I learned from trivia this past weekend playing games with family is that you live in the second most populous city on the planet. So that's pretty exciting, Rajit. Thank you so much for flying our flag over there. Top fan Andre Goer is saying hello to us from Capella aan de IJssel in Holland, which of course is otherwise known as the Netherlands. Thanks, Andre, for saying hello from the Netherlands. And last but not least on Paul's list is Rebecca Gonzalez Gutierrez saying hello to us from Madrid, Spain, a most beautiful city. Peace and long life to you, Rebecca.
Well, I'm
Jim?
glad we got a translator over here.
Definitely.
For sure.
Who you got, Jim?
So on my list, I have a top fan, Joe Anthony, who's listening to us in the Big Apple, New York, New York. Thank you for listening, Joe Anthony, top fan. I also have another top fan, Doug Graham, who's listening to us in Lewistown, in Indiana, Idaho.
The other I state. Oh, wait, there's like four of them.
I need some new glasses. Actually, what I got to do is make this a little bit bigger. There we go. And we also want to say thank you to Roger Hernandez, who's listening to us in Mexico City, Mexico, flying the Mexican flag proudly. And last but not least, Kat Gardner, who's listening to us in Springfield, Missouri. So thank you so much, guys. We could never do the show without you guys. And now it's time for our Star Trek polls, which means, here we go.
Polin, you know we like knowing what you thought about the show, and we try to share your opinions with all of our minions out there because they listen worldwide. So tell us just what you think, and together we will all drink Kanar and Romulan ale tonight.
Hit them up, move them out. Oh, sorry.
I don't know. I would have been breaking into the Klingon blood wine myself.
It was harder to rhyme. That's the only reason it didn't make it in.
Yeah, I would have gone with the Klingon blood wine.
Klingon blood wine. I don't know. I guess I could have done it.
No, it works. I like it. So at any rate, guys, as I said, you have to look a little bit harder and dig a little bit deeper, but you will find the poll questions floating around out there. So, yeah, it was a lot easier when it was all in one place, but it's not. So, Eric, you want to get us started with our poll questions for this week?
Yeah, we got a couple of good poll questions this week that aren't just landslides, so I'm excited about that. In the Enterprise episode Cogenitor, Trip finds discrimination against a third gender who commits suicide. Is Trip responsible for their suicide? And 23% of our listeners said that Trip was responsible for the suicide in Cogenitor, and 77% said he was not responsible. Jim, what was the genesis of this poll? I'm very excited to hear that.
Well, basically, if you don't remember the episode, there was a race that took 3 people, and the third person was treated as less than human, and they weren't even allowed to go to school. They were like a I don't know
Just for the reproduction process, essentially.
They were worthless. They didn't get a name. They weren't educated. They were treated like they were less than human. And when and I don't remember what the name of the race was. I should have put that in the poll. When this particular race came aboard the Enterprise and Trip met this person and opened up her eyes their eyes to the world and started educating them. And they, I'm still not used to that. I'm
They,
getting
you
there.
got a singular they. You can do it.
I'm getting there. Okay. When they saw what the world had to offer and what they and the rest of their people were being denied, the Visians, there you go, the Visians, they committed suicide rather than go back to the situation that they came from. And so I have a friend actually who was talking about this, and it interested me. And I thought, well, let's throw a poll question out there and see what the fans think. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think
you
it's a
know,
really interesting question because the Vissian who trip, essentially kind of starts the
educated.
educated, so with your head in the sand, your knowledge is low, but your safety is high, right? And as soon as you pull your head out of the sand, your safety goes down, but your knowledge and enlightenment goes up. So could Tripp have ever known that that would drive this person to not want to go back to their situation? No, of course not. In fact, just like most of the humans on Enterprise, he feels like he's doing the right thing. But I also think that Tripp and Archer and all those people, when they start their journey, they are absolutely looking at the universe from a human perspective. And it takes all 5 seasons for them to kind of realize that that's a one-dimensional way of looking at the universe. And so is Tripp partially responsible for their suicide? I think probably yes. Did he still do the right thing by educating them? Probably yes. That's my opinion.
Well, I think Enterprise is overlooked a lot because Enterprise didn't have the Prime Directive. So there was a lot of times when, and it always seemed to be Trip that was getting involved in these,
It's because he's a freaking cowboy.
you know, he, you know, they did things that you wouldn't have seen on other Star Trek shows simply for that reason. And so, yeah, I thought this was a great question. I thought it was a great episode. And I agree with you, Eric. I think that Trip did what anybody would have done in that situation. And I think that Trip felt that he was bettering their situation by enlightening them and educating them into what the world has to offer. Kind of like they did with Hugh the Borg in the I, Borg episode of TNG, hoping that they would go back to their people. And that just sounds so weird to me saying it that way, but when they go back to their people, that they would be enlightened as well, and that they would all learn from them, and you know, and
Social revolution.
yes, become the individuals that they should be. And I don't think that Trip could have ever anticipated the effect that that would have, and that they would choose death rather than going back to subservience. So I think that he thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah,
But
and that's
you
that's
know,
one of the things I love about Enterprise, as you guys know, is that the crew starts out season 1 making all kinds of mistakes, right? They're constantly making mistakes, sticking their fingers in pies where they don't belong, and they learn and they change and they grow. And that really is the essence of Star Trek. You can make mistakes and you can better yourself and you can start to look at the world from other people's perspective.
and I did think that the Vizians themselves were dicks.
Of
I
course.
mean, the way they treated them was just like,
But Jim, that's
like,
from your human perspective too, right? That's not from their cultural perspective. So I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they treated them like worse than I would treat my dog.
Yeah.
Yes, Leia, I love you, and I would never do that to you. but I mean, they were just cruel. They were heartless. They were demeaning. They just didn't even look at this person as anything at all, like just a piece of worthless garbage.
Oh.
And they were kind of dinks, kind of like those drug dealers in that other TNG episode that we talked about there. I can't remember right now, but at any rate, I don't think that Trip could have known what the outcome was. So I don't think that he was directly responsible for their suicide.
Good job. You made it. You made it all the way through. Good job, Jim.
I'll get it right. I'll get it right. You know what it is? Like, my wife and I were talking about this over the vacation, and it's not that you don't want to honor people's wishes. It's just that I was not taught that way.
Yeah, none of us were.
It's like stopping at a green light and going on a red light.
Take some
We're
retraining.
ingrained with they and them to be like you and I,
Plural.
like more than one person.
Yeah.
And when an individual wants to be referred to that way, my brain is saying, stop. No, wait, that's not right. That's not the word to use. And my brain falls back to what I've been taught. And it's hard to change that. And I don't do it out of disrespect. I just do it because that's how I was taught. So I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Really proud
I'm trying real hard. So what do you think, David? Did Trip kill this poor person or what? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I kind of agree with both of you. I agree with Eric for sure when it comes to like the cultural aspect of the race, because that's how they gain babies, right? I mean, that's how they populate their culture. So yes, in a sense, he was, just because of the fact that he tried to make it interfered in their ways, in a sense. But at the same time, no, because I agree with you. At the same time, Jim, that's saying that he had no outcome, or he didn't have any knowledge of the outcome. So to me, I'm definitely probably more or less saying that he was responsible because he interfered. But at the same time, no, he wasn't, because of the fact that he just, they're learning. They're in the process of, like, how did Archer put it? It's a gazelle getting up. He's going to stumble, and
Baby gazelle,
they're going to have to learn from time to time, and he's not going to be running it once he's born, kind of thing. So yeah, to me, I think it was a little bit of both, but leaning more towards yes, just because he interfered with an alien species who, yeah, they may look human, but I mean, that's what Star Trek's all about. But I mean, it's just the idea that the cultural aspect of that alien society, you don't mess with it, no matter what, no matter how you feel for the other people or whatever. But to me, it's just like, yeah, I think he was probably mostly responsible for it, but at the same time, no. I'm going back and forth.
Well, a friend of mine says, like, okay, so Prime Directive, great. Not messing with other cultures, great.
Yeah.
And slavery is always wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like both, right?
But to other cultures, slavery is probably how they survived. So I don't know. I mean,
to our culture, that's how we survived for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, was it slavery though? I mean, considering that
Basically.
they weren't very put into brutal practices, I guess you could say. I mean, they weren't being harmed that we know of.
I disagree.
But
well, they were wearing rags. They were treated like dirt. You know.
I mean, sure, we would feel sorry for them because of our human emotions, but to them, they didn't evolve that way. So I don't know.
See, this is what's great about Star Trek, and about the podcast.
There's no right answers.
It's just a moral and ethical thing, like what is right and what is wrong. And you know what? That means that Charles gets to bring up the caboose on this particular ethical question. So what do you think, Charles?
I don't remember the episode, but I think I'm right there with you guys. It's kind of a mix in there. Kind of reminds me of the Next Generation, where they had the society that was asexual, yet some of the members' preference towards male or female. And I think that was rather interesting with that. I do wonder, I was thinking about Eric, when Eric mentioned it, I already was thinking, I wonder if they were kind of looking a little bit of world history and slavery and kind of doing a little bit of commentary, political commentary to that. Because that does sound a little bit where this came from. But definitely, because remember in the TNG episode, if they start getting these emotions of having feelings of being male or female, the best way they do them is something probably similar to a lobotomy of making them forget and losing their memory and being forced to conform to society, as is this group. And I'd wonder if they would join the Federation, and the Federation would make change or keep the quid pro quo going.
Yeah, that's a great question, Charles. I've always wondered that about Federation societies. What level of conformancy is required to join the Federation, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did the Visians have warp capability when the Enterprise ran into them?
Yeah.
I don't remember how they met.
Yeah, they had ships. Gosh, how did they meet? I feel
think
like
it was they warped, or they came upon them, I believe it was.
they
and
did.
then,
Yeah, they were like Enterprise was like studying a star or something like that, and then they kind of came together in space.
I wonder why we never heard about them again. That's
I
interesting
mean-
because
Because they ended up having a civil war and they're all dead.
Well, I mean, the Federation doesn't.
Well,
they took a trip the wrong way.
look at all
Yeah, they.
look at all the societies we've not seen again.
Yeah.
There's a lot
I
of
think the
societies.
Federation has an anti-slavery doctrine, so
Yeah.
I don't know how they would fit in the Federation. That's another question. That's another poll question for yet another day.
I actually kind of have a theory about that, to be honest. So with the advancement of technology throughout the Federation over years and years after it's been formed, I would imagine that over time they would probably find a way around this having a third person and to be able to procreate. And so
Well, but let's be clear though. It's not the third person needed for procreation. That's the problem. It's the way that they treated that person. So
Yeah.
that's a societal change, not a biological change.
No, I know, I understand that, but if they would have found a way, biological
Biological.
biological way. If they would have found that, then they would have been able to just allow the third person to get educated or get into a more societal, I guess, tier, as you could say. So they wouldn't become slaves anymore per se. So then, maybe they had to have maybe signed a charter to join the Federation to be able to say you have to treat these people as equals kind of thing. So I would imagine they would probably do it if they found a way around the obstacle, basically. So that's my opinion.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
All right, Eric. So what's our second massively ethical poll question that
was another good one. Yeah. So in the TOS episode Space Seed, Lieutenant Marla McGivers is ethically bound by the Federation and romantically drawn to Khan. At the end, she chooses Khan. Do you agree with her decision? And 21% of our listeners agree with McGivers choosing Khan over her sort of Federation family, so to speak, and 79% disagree with her choice and think that she should have chosen the Federation. And so I guess my response to this poll is, if you look back in history at every single story that's ever been told, love matters more than anything else. And so did she break her Federation ideals by going with Khan? Absolutely. Was Khan sort of a half crazy madman bent on world domination? Absolutely. And could she have ever made a different decision? I don't think so, man. Love conquers all. So I think she was probably wrong, but I don't think she had a choice. I think she was in love and she had to choose that.
Well, I think it was in the script. If she had chosen,
well, yeah. I mean,
if she had chosen the Federation, we wouldn't have the Wrath of Khan. And then we
No.
wouldn't have Nicholas Meyer, and we wouldn't be talking to him in a couple of weeks about that. So, yeah, she made the right decision all the way.
Yeah.
Maybe we should access to Nicholas Myers and see what he thinks.
We'll ask Nicholas Meyer
That's
that
a good
same
question.
See what
Yeah.
he says. No, you know what? I think that this is another one of those like progenitor questions, because even though she chose Khan, she didn't abandon her Federation ideals, because she came back and saved everybody,
Yep.
and they would have easily been killed.
Yep.
And basically, she did kind of come around, and at the end decided to go with Khan rather than go to a penal colony. So again, it's kind of like the cogenitor thing. She made the wrong decision, but then kind of course corrected, and then decided to go with Khan after all. So yeah, I mean, she made the wrong decision, absolutely, but it all worked out in the end because we got the Wrath of Khan. What do you think, David?
I think Khan just bribed her with cookies. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
He bribed her with that chest, is what he did.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think, I mean, I totally agree with Eric that love conquers all, and the fact that, yeah, she did probably make the wrong decision because she was kind of ethically bound to the Federation. However, how many times have we seen throughout Star Trek history where people come and go? We know we got the bad admirals now, and so people leave the Federation for different reasons, but yeah, so I mean, technically, this is another one that says yes and no for me, but I guess I'm leaning toward more like absolutely that she did make the right choice to go with Khan. But I mean, if it, like you said, Jim, if it didn't happen, we wouldn't have had the Wrath of Khan. So maybe
True.
maybe it would have been called Love of Khan.
The absence of Khan.
The absence of Khan.
All right, Charles, we're back to you again, buddy.
Well, the one thing is, she still ended up giving the Federation up to being in that abandoned ship. And did she make it to Did she make it to Rathacon too? Don't think she
Nope.
was.
She wasn't. I think the actress died, didn't she?
I think she was
Yeah,
mentioned.
and there's
though.
actually a non-canon explanation too. If you read that, what's it called, Reigning in Hell comic book with Khan when he's on Alpha Ceti 5, I think I got that right. And that's when she actually dies on the planet, is in the comic book.
Well, yeah, they also mentioned she died in the movie, I thought, because that's when
Was
that's
thinking
the
of that.
explanation why she wasn't there.
Yeah, but they
Yeah,
show it in the comic there.
The bug things got into her ear and killed her.
The Seti eels.
The Seti eels.
Or the planet.
Yeah. So yeah.
I think she did break her oath to the Federation. I'm not sure if she'd end up in a penal colony. She might have been in the brig or military prison. But either way, she probably wasn't going to have a great life. So
Yeah, she was also being in the court martial, wasn't she?
she probably would have if she'd sat there and tried to help Khan and lose the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Well, she ended up dead after a couple of months, so maybe she should have stayed with the Federation. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I try to come up with interesting questions that are gonna make people debate and talk. So yeah, that was an interesting one for sure. So you know what time it is now, don't you? It's this time.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
All right, this is a part of the show where Charles goes back and tries to pick out some interesting episodes that you can go back and watch that will fill in some of the holes or just discuss what's going on in this week's episode of Lower Decks. So, Charles, take it away with cadet training, buddy.
All right. Well, we're not going to hit just shows. We're going to hit entire productions. As the first few, Enterprise, where you can learn about DePaul and her relationship prior to marrying Tucker. DS9, you can learn more about Curzon Dax, Elam Garrick, and Dr. Julian Bashir. Voyager, you can learn more about Harry Kim, Ensign Harry Kim. You can also go to Star Trek First Contact and learn about Lily Sloan. And then a few episodes to recognize. Lower Decks, Crisis Point 2, Paradox. This is the death of Boimler's clone, or the other Boimler, which we find out in this episode didn't actually die, but it was a transfer of him to a different organization. Lower Decks, Much Ado About Boimler. By the way, The Death of the Clone was Season 3, Episode 8. Much Ado About Boimler, Season 1, Episode 7. The Quapians previously appeared and were much more friendly then. This was a good tie-in here. DS9, where you hear the reference to Dr. Bashir, I presume, which was a DS9 Season 5, Episode 16, which was the first time that they had an idea about creating a Bashir EMH. So where this episode they actually had one, that's the episode where they actually got the idea originally.
Excellent. So you guys can go and check those out if you'd like a little bit of backstory or just some fun filler about this week's episode of Lower Decks. And every week I ask you guys what you thought about the episode and to score the episode. And again, you have to be creative. You have to try to find it because it's no longer on our Facebook page, unfortunately. But it's still floating around out there on the socials. You can find it if you look. And I'm going to turn this over to Eric to do the fan ratings on Fissure Quest. Take it away, Eric.
All right, Jim. I had a little bit of technical difficulties. You guys can hear me okay, though, right?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Our fan Ellen Smock said, I love it so much. It's super funny, moving, great science fiction, and quite simply, the best fan service ever. Thanks, Ellen. Daniel Ballard said, I did, and bringing back a lot of the original characters to voice their original characters made it even better. Bobby Vergis said, awesome episode. Tom Camerata said, they know how to do fan service. Dana Smith said, I thought the Locarno from last season was a deep cut, but some of these I was like, wow. And to get Alfie Woodard and Jolene Blaylock to come back to Star Trek is amazing. This is the Star Trek episode I didn't know I needed and is one of my top favorites of new Star Trek episodes. Boyd Clark said, maybe my favorite one of the series. Jim J. Watson said, Lower Decks covered so much ground all over Star Trek. Madeline Wildish said, the cold open alone was worth the price of entry. Sebastian Wilkins said it was nice for them to address the extended universe canon around Trip and T'Pol's marriage. Paul Kuntz said, this episode was fire. This was a great idea for a great movie. Live action. Interesting. Barton Pyle said, absolutely loved it. I want more seasons. Matthew Jacinto said, my jaw dropped and dropped and dropped in giddiness. More proof that the people making this show love Trek. Stefan Couture said, great fun. The Kims are so funny. And Ryan Galloway said, so awesome. One of my favorite Lower Decks episodes, right up there with the DS9 and Locarno ones. And Jim, this week we have a fan score for this episode of 9.2. 9.2. That is an extremely respectable number. I believe that that's right at the top end of what we have seen for Lower Decks this season. Yeah, looks like it's right up there. So fantastic episode. The fans loved it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, who wants to jump in here first? Charles, you want to go first since you dragged up the caboose on the last couple? If maybe
You're muted, Charles.
All
we
right,
can't hear you.
let me grab my notes then. A few notes that I had to throw up on this one. Definitely love this episode. I actually decided, because people were saying, well, you haven't watched the last two episodes. Like, okay, I went through and saw both of them together, and they were a great two-parter together. But right in the beginning, you see Boimler with the black badge. And I didn't tie that in, but that reminds me of the badge we saw, I think the third episode, Discovery, and we saw the teaser for season 2 of Discovery. But we normally don't see a whole lot of that black badge. Look at Mariner in yellow. That was definitely kind of throwing me off a little bit there. It was impressive to see her in a position that she was a lot more like our engineer, a little more like a Tilly, or I can't think of his name, but interesting to see that she was more of an excited ops person.
You're thinking of Billups, I think.
No, I'm actually thinking of our Lower Decks one.
Billups.
Phillips. All right. Somebody made the comment, and I was looking through, and somebody made the comment, and I agree. Too bad in this episode they never decide to actually do a blue alert. Does anybody ever remember what a blue alert was?
I do know what a blue alert is.
Isn't that a medical thing?
No.
No, blue alert is what you go in when you're exiting space dock.
No. When you're landing. Coming
into space
when
dock.
You're well, I think Voyager used a blue. Somebody used a blue once to land on the planet. And this was nice to see the fact that they actually went on and did a landing, which that was a topic of conversation of the original Defiant. We don't think ever had landing gear. So we think this new one actually got landing gear built in, which is impressive to see. The USS Beagle, I shouldn't say USS Beagle, but the Beagle. Anybody know what its origin is?
It's Archer's dog.
Yeah, it's Snoopy.
It's Porthos.
Well, the ship we saw in the show wasn't where the ship come from.
Yeah, that was one of the ships we saw on the wall of the Enterprise in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
It's a version of it, yeah.
It's a USS Enterprise XCV-3330, which we got to see in the motion picture. Also, I like the name of the ship. Anaximar. Anaximar. And Eric might know that reference.
I do. Yeah, he's considered one of the very first Greek philosophers. I know he was the first one to write down his actual stuff so that we could have it now. And I believe he's the one who
not just that
came up with the concept. And I was finishing that I believe that he's also the one who came up with the concept of infinity.
Anaximener was the first astronomer to consider the sun as a huge mass and consequently to realize how far the Earth might be. And it's first to present the system where celestial bodies turned at different distances. So he was actually not only a philosopher, but one of probably our first astronomers. So I thought that was an interesting way of tying him to the ship. And what did people think about the Garrick-Bergier relationship? Finally got to see those two as a couple. And I forgot to reference that, but I would reference that to the documentary which recently was mentioned, What We Left Behind. Discussion about the documentary on DS9. And they said in that show that there could have been a relationship and they never really followed on it. But that I do like in here that they finally took one pair from different dimensions and actually allowed to have a relationship going on between the two.
And what was interesting about that, Charles, is one of them was a hologram.
Yep.
So we got some interspecies stuff. Well, I don't know interspecies, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, essentially interspecies. Yeah.
Yep. It was a great thing put together. And it's definitely would have been one we wish there'd been more of a follow-up to what happened. As I'll let somebody else talk about it, but I think there was a follow-up to what happened with Paul and Kershaw.
Yeah.
But I'll jump in later, but I'm going to go with a 9.5 on this one. This
Impressive.
one's definitely up there.
Most impressive
episode.
Had to get some Star Wars in there, huh? Most impressive. So I got to move my computer here a little bit because the dog is laying right on my feet and I'm getting numb here. Come on, Leia. Can't you go somewhere else? There we go. So, who wants to jump in next? I guess I will. So, I got to say, I watched this episode right before the podcast just to refresh myself because it was, 2 weeks ago since I watched it. And I got to say, I'm not really big on the alternate universe, multiverse stuff.
Jim, are you like Boimler says in here, where he's like, thinks the multiverse is a lazy derivative and that he's so effing sick of the multiverse?
Yes, I was pretty much Boimler. I mean, Marvel did it. I don't like it. I didn't like Loki. I wasn't thrilled with it. So yeah, I was not thrilled with it. And the reason why I'm not thrilled with it is because it's not real. There's
as opposed to everything else.
Yeah, there's no, if Trip dies in this universe, you just jump to another universe and grab him. Discovery did it with Giorgio, and we know that there's a multiverse because when Stamets was jumping the Discovery around the Klingon ship, every little globe that they saw was a universe, and Lorca was trying to find his. So we know that it's there. We're well aware of it. We know that there's a mirror universe, and I just don't feel the need to really delve much deeper into it than that. So I wasn't impressed with it. However, I loved the episode. Okay. I thought it was great that we saw Curzon waving his batleth around and to Paul, and like one of our viewers or listeners had said, it was great to see all these characters back again, and the Kims just had me on the floor laughing. I loved the Bashir Garrick thing was great too. Having Lily show up. There was a lot of fun stuff in this episode that I did enjoy. I just didn't enjoy the premise of it. And we're going to talk a lot more about that next week. I'm going to stick to this episode in particular. So, this particular episode, I didn't mind it quite as much because of the way the episode was structured, the way it worked out. And it was just a lot of fun. You know, the repercussions of it weren't brought up until the next episode. So I enjoyed it. And I did like seeing the Section 31 Boimler. And I don't know why they didn't mention that in this episode, but he's
Well, he
working for
says in
Section,
his log that he can't tell us what the organization is. So, I mean,
which
they
is
do
really,
mention it by not mentioning it.
well, it's weird because they specifically told us when they revived him 2 seasons ago or whenever it was that it was Section 31.
Yeah, but he's leaving a log now, and he can't put anything like that in an official log.
Ah, yes, the old log, the captain's log.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. Like if something's classified, they can tell us on screen, but you can't put that in a log.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that we know as fans that are unbeknownst to the people that,
Exactly.
you know, just like in Spaceballs. But yeah, I mean, I thought Curzon was great. I liked the whole thing with T'Pol taking the Dax symbiont's memories, kind of the Katra, like we
Multiple
saw
Katras,
Spock in
which is really cool.
doing the Wrath of Khan. That was all great. I loved Boimler as
Bones.
Mariner as an engineer was great too, like Charles said. So there was a lot of fun stuff in here. So I'm right there with Charles. I'm going to go with a 9.5 on this one. It was just fun. It was a fun episode. And I'm going to go with a 9.5. Who wants to jump in here next? Well, we have David, we have Eric. Eric, you want to bring up the caboose on this one?
Sure, I'll bring up the caboose. Go for it, David.
Go for it, David.
All right.
Oh, and by the way, your slideshow is outstanding. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks. I'm pretty much right up there with you guys as far as scoring goes. But I almost felt like this episode for some reason was a little rushed. Only because they knew that they were being canceled, and the fact that they had to get this particular episode in there before it canceled. So to me, I thought there could have been a little bit more explanation of trying to find, who's responsible for opening up all these rifts. And to me, I was like, well, that turned out to be pretty quick to me. I don't know. I mean, it was just something about it that this whole season where they were trying to find the person, and all of a sudden it just happened to be here. It's like maybe it was planned, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But to me, it just felt a little rushed. But no, I'm pretty much up there with you guys. I did enjoy this episode. I thought it was really adventurous, and I'm kind of with Jim on this one, where he's talking about like I hope that they didn't have to open up a multi-universe. But I mean, even before Lower Decks, they've been talking about the multiverse for quite a while. I mean, didn't Enterprise mention something about that as well when Daniels was talking to them about the different time zones and stuff that could? I thought he mentioned something about a different.
Yeah, I mean,
universe.
to me, David, there's a question of like timeline versus universe, right? Like
Yeah.
Daniels was talking about different timelines and stuff. And then there's universes, but like you could probably argue that those two are one and the same, but I've always thought about them as different. Like in this timeline, I make this decision or I make this decision and different things happen. But in a different universe, I'm green and something entirely different would happen.
Yeah, I just thought for some reason Star Trek made an explanation like if you mess with the time, it's going to open up another pathway to an alternate universe kind of thing. So I always thought when you're messing with time travel, multiple portals start opening up to different universes or something. I don't know. Maybe that's probably not a thing.
Didn't Wesley talk about that in Prodigy?
Yeah, something like that. That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But so I mean, they've been talking about it for a while, which is probably leading up to this, because I believe this was the last series that was canceled. before Prodigy and the others, I think. Am I wrong about that? But anyways, yeah, I loved the fact that they brought in Paul, and I'm actually kind of intrigued with the multiple universe, even though I'm not really much of a big fan of it either. That's one of the reasons why I kind of stopped watching a lot of the MCUs or whatever the other ones do. But yeah, to me, this one had a lot of potentials, and yes, it may or may not be lazy writing, just because they're bringing in some people might call fan service because they brought DePaul in and stuff. But if they come up with something new, that's great. If they come up with something that they've done before, trope, it's fine too. I'm all for fan service here and there, but depending on the story plot and everything. But other than that, it's intriguing. It's an intriguing plot line, and I hope they do bring back Lower Decks, because I kind of want to see where they take it. So, to me, I'm actually interested now to hear what you guys think. Are they going to be bringing Boimler live action into Section 31 movie? Now, since we know he's part of this.
I don't think so.
Wrong
No.
timeline.
Okay, I mean,
Well,
when you-
Section 31 was done long before this was, even though the timing of the release isn't, the actual Section 31 was written and filmed long before this episode.
no, it's just kind of an interesting
But it's
thought.
not a bad idea, because we did see him on Strange New Worlds, and he was awesome.
Yeah. Although I'd have to say, I believe it was this episode that my favorite line from Mariner was, "Damn 2.2 pipped him."
There was a lot of funny lines in this one.
Yeah, considering the fact that there is a lot of different things that took place in here, I actually liked how Harry Kim, the promoted one, was actually the villain of this. Although, did he really need to be? I don't know, but it was kind of an interesting plot line, and the fact that we actually got to meet Sloane, which I never knew Lily had a last name in First Contact, to be honest. I never knew that she even mentioned her name, or even if it was even in the credits, was it?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
she had a Star Trek card too in the game.
Yeah, I
Not
had no idea.
attacked.
Okay. When they mentioned Lily, I almost had to go look it up, but then I realized, oh, I remember who it was now. So, yeah, it was the lady from Star Trek, First Contact, which was kind of interesting, but at the same time, it was like, they could do a lot of stuff with these multi-universes, because they could literally bring in Captain Kirk in this timeline just by opening up a rift into Captain Kirk's timeline and bringing him in to ours. So it's like, there's so much potential with this idea that it could be a great idea, but at the same time, it could be not so great idea. I mean, are they going to be bringing in another alien species that we may have never heard of before? So, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting concept if they continue on, and I really hope they bring back Lower Decks, as I said before. So, I'm going to have to give this one a 9.9, to be honest.
Wow.
I actually really did enjoy it, and I hope they bring it back.
Eric,
That's
do we
my
have a
wish.
score from Paul?
I asked him and I didn't hear back from him, so I do not have a score from Paul. I did try though.
We could
Fair
give him
is
a
fair.
point something.
We can give him a decimal, because he loves decimals so much. We'll give him a 0.9.
He may jump right from wherever he is right now and come after us if we do.
Well, so Eric, that means you got the caboose on this one. You got to hear what everybody else thought, and you get the final straw.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's address a few things that you guys talked about first. So I agree with David. The episode, when it first starts out, feels like it's moving at lightning pace. It was a little disconcerting at first, but then I think I kind of got used to it. And upon a second viewing, I didn't think it was as disconcerting, but it did feel a little rushed. I also felt like some of the scene transitions were a little weird. There were like weird pauses that would occur before the scene would change. So I don't know what that was all about. Feels like maybe one more round of editing could have cleaned that up just a little bit. Jim, you brought up the multiverse thing. So I completely would normally agree with you in that alternate universe stories don't matter to the characters that we know and care about. However, I think this one was unique in that all of the alternate universe stuff that was happening had ramifications in our prime universe, right? If all universes are destroyed, then that's a huge problem. And so despite the fact that our prime universe characters weren't really in the show aside from the very beginning and the very end, all of the stuff that the alternate universe characters were doing mattered to the fate of our prime universe characters. So I didn't, like, in the end, even though I initially thought that was an issue, I didn't think it was. So that's my take on that. The jokes were okay. They were not the funniest jokes that we've heard on the show, but some of them were decent. I will say, and does anybody know? I didn't have a chance to look this up. Does anybody know if Garrett Wong actually voiced Kim or not?
Yes,
I think it was.
he did.
He did.
He did.
Okay.
Garrick was Garrick to Paul. I'm not sure about to Paul, if that was to Paul or not, but no, that was to
It was
Paul.
Julie
That was.
Royal.
I don't know, but no, I don't know about Lily. I don't think she was the same actress. I'm not positive.
It was.
Yep,
Yeah,
that
it
was
the
her.
same
Then
actress.
yes,
that was her.
they did. All of them came back to do these roles.
So my take on that is that I'm kind of tired of the Harry Kim not being promoted trope thing. Like, I just am sick of it, and I hate
It's a
that it
trope.
keeps getting brought up all the time, and I hate that people make jokes about it all the time. And when we had Garrett Wong on our podcast, he said that he's sick of it and that he doesn't like it. So I'm assuming that the reason that he did this show was that he got paid some bank, and good for him. But
Well, he did have 2 pips.
he had 2 pips,
He
which
had
was
2 pips.
yeah, 2 pip Kim. But could that have been done in a slightly different way? Yeah. Were there some funny jokes in there as a result? Yeah. But man, I hope this is the last we hear about Kim not being promoted in Star Trek. I'm just tired of it. So those are kind of like my overall thoughts. Specifically, let's see. There's several things specifically I want to talk about. You get the whole like plasma blast from oh my god, I just lost his name, from Rutherford's eye thing at the beginning of the show. That never comes back up. I'm assuming that maybe that's going to come back up in the final episode, but
yes, it
otherwise
is.
it was just kind of a.
It is.
Yep.
Well, thanks for the spoiler alert.
Didn't say what
Well, you
happened.
did ask.
No,
You
I
did-
didn't ask you to tell me what happens. I just said I
Well, I didn't
wonder
tell
if
you what
that's going.
happened. You
No,
just
but
asked me.
Charles just told. No, I didn't ask. Okay, so anyway, apparently that's going to come up in the future. It was a little weird that it didn't come back up in this episode. I do love the fact that the T'Pol that we get to see got to be married to Trip for 63 years because, as we all know, Trip, spoiler alert, dies in Enterprise, and so she actually doesn't get that opportunity. So I'm super glad that that she did. The Garrick Bashir thing, amazing. I mean, fans have been talking about that for years. Finally, it's on screen. I love that they did that. I'm with Jim on the multiverse thing, as I was saying, but like I said, there's an out, so it's not so bad. Let's see, Lily Sloan. Oh man, it was awesome to have her back, and the fact that this Lily Sloan that we see comes from a reality where warp drive was never invented, but quantum drive was, and they can bounce from reality to reality. I thought that was a really cool kind of like way of looking at it. I mean, if you're going to do multiverse, that's a great way to kind of pull you entirely out of the Star Trek that we know and give us a different kind of Star Trek. And in fact, I mean, we already kind of knew about multiverse and timeline ever since 2009, right? Like the entire Kelvin movie series is all based on there being at least 3 universes: Prime, Mirror, and Kelvin. So it's not like we didn't know that there were more universes. Although I did like, there's that one line that one of the Kim says was, he's like, "What do you mean there are more than 2 universes?" That was pretty funny. he makes a couple of other Kim comments. That's very un-Kim-like behavior. He liked that. Uh, T'Pol absorbing multiple Katras, please don't comment on this. I'm wondering if that's going to come up in the final episode as well, and I'm excited if it does. Let's see. There were a bunch of other kind of like familiar things that came up. Like I remember seeing the one Kim that was absolutely in the uniform from the Voyager episode Drive that I thought was kind of fun. Apparently it looked like he was the one who got trapped in the Delta Quadrant and actually never made it home. Remember, there's that whole thing like, are you one of the ones that made it back, or did you get trapped in the Delta Quadrant? And they were trying to decide which one he was. And I think just the Drive Kim was the one who ended up being trapped in the Delta Quadrant. That was hilarious. I don't know. Here's a question I have. The aliens there, what were they, Quopians or Qtopians or something like that? The ones that everybody thought were going to be nice, but then turned out to be mean. Is that what Moopsie was? Was Moopsie a Qtopian or whatever?
No, this was shown up in. Back to my show notes. What you do about Boimler? We saw them in that episode.
Okay. I mean, there was that comment about like, well, at least they don't drink our bones or something like that. So I wondered if there was a little connection there or not, but
Don't know
maybe
what
not.
Moopsie was.
Okay. I love that we got to actually see Curzon a little bit more, because we only see Curzon in DS9 in a couple of flashbacks, and then we see kind of like the personality of Curzon in that one episode where Dax's like previous personalities inhabit members of the crew, and they sort of come back and interact with her. So it was cool to actually see Curzon in the flesh for an extended period of time. And to me, he was very Shax-like, kind of like just ready to use his batleth to do whatever needed to be done. And the comment about the Borg Kirk. That totally, the second I heard that, I started laughing so hard, because I don't know how many of you have read that William Shatner novel, The Return, where dead Kirk is resurrected and becomes a Borg. This is a book written by William Shatner, because he didn't like the way that Kirk died in Generations, and so he wanted a different death for him, so he wrote a book about it. Hilarious that they brought in that beta canon stuff. So lots of stuff to like, lots of references. The timing of the show was a little weird, and the jokes were pretty good, but not amazing. So I can't quite go as high as you guys are going. I mean, I definitely enjoyed the episode, and I watched it twice, and I got different stuff out of it the second time, so that says something. So without modifying my score from what I wrote down before I heard you guys, I gave this show an 8, a solid 8. I thought it was great, but definitely not the best Lower Decks that I've seen personally. So
Can I offer you some cookies to change your mind?
no, I mean, here at 9.9 kind of makes me want to give it a 4 just to bring the average down.
Oh, no.
But I honestly thought it was about an 8 myself.
No, come on, you got to go with a decimal in honor of Paul.
Well, 7.9 then.
Yeah.
It's more a 7.9 than an 8.1.
You got to go with a decimal just for Paul.
Oh,
He loves
I
those
went down.
decimals.
7.99. 7.99. That's what I
Just
give
for
it.
Paul.
Yeah.
He
At
loves
least
them
you got
decimals.
7 of 9 in there.
Yeah, got to get a 7 of 9. So overall, what does that leave us with, Charles?
Actually,
versus our
we're
fans?
actually working in the numbers. That 7.9 actually works. And this is, I think, a rare occasion. The fans gave it a 9.2. The host gave it a 9.2.
That is rare.
Wow.
That is very rare. That
Yeah.
hardly ever happens. Wow. All right, guys. So that wraps up our discussion on Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 9, Fissure Quest. Next week, we're going to talk about the new Next Generation, which is the Season 5 and episode finale of Lower Decks. So please search our socials so that you can be heard in our polls and get your opinion mentioned on the episode. And you know what time it is now? This is the part of the show where we do our Star Trek birthdays, and that means we have to play our song.
That was not a Klingon song.
No, Worf, that wasn't. You say that every week, and I love it. And I love what David put up on the screen. Gotta love that. Gotta love my engineer. He's quite the guy. All right, guys. So this is the part of the show where we do our Star Trek birthdays. And we always start off with Eric. And sadly enough, we're going to remember those members of our Star Trek family who are no longer with us. Eric, take it away.
Yeah, Jim, this week we're going to remember 6 members of our Star Trek community who have gone before us. The very first is actor Rudy Solari. Rudy Solari was the actor who played Salish in the TOS 3rd season episode, The Paradise Syndrome. Rudy definitely became a household name in series like Gunsmoke, Outer Limits, Big Valley, Mission Impossible, Police Story, and Quincy M.E. back in the day. But he made his first film debut with a brief appearance in the 1961 classic Judgment at Nuremberg, which also featured somebody else you may have heard of from Star Trek named William Shatner. Unfortunately, Rudy died of cancer in 1991 at a young age, 56 years old. He was a popular acting coach and theater director, and actually once had a theater named after him. It has since been renamed. Happy birthday, Rudy Solari. Happy birthday as well to Richard Dick Miller. Dick Miller was a veteran actor who has appeared in 2 Star Trek spin-off series. He first portrayed the holographic news vendor in the Next Generation first season episode The Big Goodbye, and then later appeared as Vin in the Deep Space Nine third season episodes Past Tense Part 1 and Part 2, of course, which are set, well, last year now. Miller was a veteran of campy and often humorous science fiction and horror movies. Began as a regular in the Roger Corman films and later in films directed by Joe Dante. He made his film debut back in 1955 in Corman's movie Apache Woman. And if you look him up on IMDb, he now has over 200 credits to his name. So far too many for me to go through. Let's say Dick Miller, a very prolific actor. We lost him just back in 2019 at the ripe old age of 90 years old. Happy birthday, Dick Miller.
Mr. Futterman in the Gremlins movies. That's where I remember him from.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got so many great roles in movies over the years, so go check him out. Happy birthday as well to Elisha Van Slyck Cook Jr. He's mostly known and loved in Star Trek as Samuel T. Cogley in the TOS first season episode Court Martial. Very familiar actor, he's a very short of stature person, a former vaudevillian, had a prestigious Hollywood career spanning nearly 6 decades. He made frequent appearances in many shows as a mobster. He was on Magnum P.I. from 1983 to 1988 and made guest appearances all over the place. Was also featured in several classic films, including The Maltese Falcon, The Big Sleep, House on Haunted Hill. I mean, these are like banger movies. So he's been in a whole bunch of them. You should also go check out his IMDb page. But we lost Elisha back in 1995 at the age of 91 years old. Happy birthday to Elisha Cook Jr. Happy birthday as well to Charles Maxwell. He's the actor who played Virgil Earp in the TOS third season episode Spectre of the Gun. Of course, Virgil was the older brother to Wyatt Earp, if you feel like you recognize that Earp name. Charles Maxwell made guest appearances on The High Chaparral, Bonanza, Gunsmoke, and was also the voice of the radio broadcaster throughout the entire run of Gilligan's Island. Every time you heard that radio guy, that's Charles Maxwell. He also appeared in such films as The Search for Bridie McMurphy, The Power of the Resurrection, and Brainstorm from 1965. Happy birthday, Charles Maxwell lost back in 1993 at 79 years old. Happy birthday as well to David Wesley Froman. I mixed up the order there. Sorry about that. I always save the best for last. He's the veteran television actor and drama instructor who played Commander Kynera in the Next Generation first season episode Heart of Glory. He's perhaps best known for his reoccurring role as Lieutenant Bob Brooks on the NBC television series Matlock from 1986 through 1994. In fact, in 1986, Froman also guest starred on an episode of the crime adventure series T.J. Hooker, also starring and featuring Mr. Bill Shatner. After Matlock ended its run in 94, Froman returned to Miami and rejoined the faculty at A&M College, where he remained as a full-time instructor until 2002. He also worked with the Miami Little Theater for many years, and in August of 2007, he continued working at the college as a part-time drama instructor, where he remained until his death from cancer in 2010. He was 71 years old. Happy birthday to David Wesley Froman. And now, David, back it up once, because for our finale, we will say happy birthday to the one, the only, Nichelle Nichols, of course, known as Lieutenant Uhura in the original series. She also provided the voice for a number of other characters on the animated series. She was actually originally discovered by jazz legend Duke Ellington in her mid-teens and began touring with Ellington and Lionel Hampton as a lead singer and dancer. She didn't break into acting until the film Porgy and Bess in 1959 and had an acting career that lasted over 45 years. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but Nichols actually lobbied to appear as Guinan's daughter in The Next Generation. Richard Arnold, in fact, added to that by suggesting that at the Los Angeles Creation Convention in 1990, she might appear as Guinan's mother or daughter. However, neither came to pass, and I'm not really sure why. It would have been kind of cool to see Nichelle Nichols play a different role other than Uhura, but we never got to see that. She was the first African-American actress to place her handprints in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, along with the rest of the Star Trek cast. And I, of course, have seen that. I believe Charles and I may have been together when we saw that. In 1992, she earned her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And in 2006, she returned to the role of Uhura, of course, in the fan film Star Trek of Gods and Men, which, if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely should give it a whirl. After meeting Nichols at a Star Trek convention in 1975, scientist Dr. Jesko von Puttkamer suggested that the actress take part in NASA's recruitment drive. Nichols took up the role in 1977, making recruitment and training films, and supervised astronaut recruiting and hopefuls. She noted that within 6 months, the applicant count went from fewer than 100 a year to over 1,600. Most of the recruits that she attracted were women or from ethnic minorities. For her efforts, Nichols was named as NASA's Woman of the Year in 1979. And if you'd like to know more about her role in NASA and the recruitment process, you can see the most excellent movie, Woman in Motion, which just came out a few years ago. Would anybody else like to say anything about Nichelle Nichols while we've got you here?
Well, I just finished reading the graphic novel by George Takei called They Called Us Enemy.
Yeah.
And I was, first of all, if you haven't read that,
So good.
you have to. It's
So
just, it's wow.
I've got a copy, David, if you want to borrow it.
For people that say something like that can never happen here, it did.
Yeah.
And especially with what's going on in our political arena right now and the threat of things that might happen, I think it's more important now than ever to not forget history and make sure it doesn't happen again. But the reason why I bring that up is there's a chapter in that book where George meets Nichelle because he was doing a play about the graphic novel and she was in it, and he met her before they were on Star Trek. And he actually mentions it in the book. He says that he met her and he didn't know how integral his relationship to her would end up being in the future. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. It's great. And George meeting Nichelle before they were on Star Trek was awesome. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I did meet her at a Star Trek convention, and I had an autograph of her doing the fan dance from none other than the greatest Star Trek movie ever, Star Trek V. And she was very gracious, very nice lady, and I just can't say enough good about her. So
Yeah, she talks
yeah.
about that part in Star Trek V, actually, Jim, because of course in Star Trek, only in a couple of episodes did they actually get to feature her voice, and they never until then really got to feature her dancing talents. And so in Star Trek V, when she got to sing and dance, she felt like that was a very special moment.
Yeah, until they took her singing out. I don't know if it was Shatner
Yeah,
or
no,
the
it's true.
studio,
Yeah,
but they took her singing out and didn't tell her.
ridiculous.
And she wasn't happy about that, but she was definitely a class act all the way around.
Yeah.
Well,
So of course, oh, go ahead, Charles.
and conventions. I made a couple conventions. She was there. She made one visit on stage after the 50th and wasn't able to really go on stage, but she'd still be in the dealer's room. And she was always so friendly to anybody who came to meet her and speak with her. But it was just nice the fact that she's one that she'd show up the entire convention just to be in the dealer's room, just to sit there and speak with the fans.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
And
So yeah,
and I definitely agree with the Woman in Motion. I saw that with our Star Trek group, and that movie just gave me an entirely new impression of her.
mhm. Yeah, you never really realized how many people looked up to her and were inspired by her. All sorts of people just came to not only Star Trek, but the space program through her. And unfortunately, back in 2018, she was diagnosed with dementia. We just lost her back in 2022. It feels like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
ah,
and I just there's a picture floating around of her with President Obama.
mhm.
And for her to meet the first black president and for him to tell her that she was the reason why, it's got to, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
That she impacted her presence on the Enterprise and on Star Trek, impacted the lives of countless people, including the president of the future president of the United States. I mean, that's how influential and how important her role on Star Trek was. So,
Pretty
yeah,
amazing.
it is amazing.
So yeah, so happy birthday to Nichelle Nichols. We really really miss you, and we just can't even quantify your influence on the planet. So happy birthday! And that does it for our memories this week. So I'm gonna pass this birthday microphone over to Charles.
Well, thank you, Eric. Let's start off with a happy birthday to Melanie Scorfano, played Captain Marie Battelle, the commanding officer of the USS Sayaga. She was also
Cayuga.
Cayuga. She was also an officer in the Judge Advocacy General's office in Strange New Worlds. Happy birthday to Andy Dick. He's an actor-comedian who portrayed the EMH Mark II in Star Trek Voyager's fourth season episode Message in a Bottle. As we just talked about an EMH in this episode. Happy birthday, Nicole D. Boyer. It's a Canadian actress who played Ezri Dax during the seventh season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Last on my list, but definitely not the bottom of my list, very happy birthday to Michelle Hurd, American actress who played Raffi Musker in Star Trek Picard. I wish we'd seen more of Raffi. She was great in that series.
I'll just tell you, man, I saw her on stage at, I believe it was Phantom Fest last year here in Portland. And I haven't been to as many conventions as Uncle Jim has been, but I've been to quite a few, and I will say that she is probably one of the most interesting people I have ever listened to talk on stage. Man, she is politically active. She was the one who was basically one of the leaders of the whole SAG-AFTRA
Oh,
strike
yeah.
last year. She is very strong-willed, strong-minded, and yet compassionate and loving, and she just exudes nothing but positive energy. I loved her character, and I loved her as an actress, and then when I got to see her on stage, I loved her twice as much. She's an amazing person.
Yes, she is.
I would love to get a chance to meet her myself. I haven't had the opportunity, but she's one of those ones that I definitely want to meet. For sure.
Okay. Cheryl, I'm going to toss his mic up, and should I pass it over to David or Eric?
I can definitely take it.
Okay. Let you have some
Yep.
living birthdays, too.
How about that? All right, we're saying happy birthday this week to Dina Meyer, the actress who played Commander Dinatra in Star Trek Nemesis. But she's perhaps best known for her role as Dizzy Flores in Starship Troopers from 1997. But let's be honest, we all love Dinatra because she's awesome, right? And David knows that she is probably one of the best cards in Star Trek Attack Wing, too. So I love her on that front as well. It's like, yeah. So happy birthday, Dina Meyer. Happy birthday as well to Noelle Wells, the American actress, comedian, director, musician, and writer who voices Devana Tendi on Star Trek Lower Decks. We love you, Tendi. Thanks, Noelle, for making a great character for Lower Decks.
Now,
Happy birthday.
Eric, is it just me, or did the artists try to capture the actor's likeness
Totally.
in the characters? Because if you look at that picture,
Yeah.
I can see her there.
No, absolutely. The smile, the eyes, and when you hear her in interviews and stuff, she has a personality that's sort of Tendi-ish as well. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Jim. Pretty cool. Let's talk about one of my favorite actors from Star Trek Discovery. Happy birthday to Wilson Cruz, the American actor who plays Dr. Hugh Culber on Star Trek Discovery. He appeared as a reoccurring guest star in the first season and was promoted to a regular cast member from the second season onwards. And let me tell you, this guy has got some talent and he always looks good in a uniform. So happy birthday to Wilson Cruz. And last but not least, on Paul's list, we say happy birthday to Bebe Neuwirth. She's the actress who played the role of Linnell in Star Trek The Next Generation's fourth season episode, First Contact. And, you may know her from some other things as well. Maybe. Perhaps.
Maybe, just maybe.
Maybe, perhaps. So yeah, happy birthday. And Jim, I'll pass that birthday candle over to you then, brother.
Yeah, so I always like to do the Klingons, well, because I like to wave my batleth around. But we're going to start off with one who's not a Klingon, because he's in one of my favorite movies, one of my guilty pleasures movies from the 80s. And yes, Leia wants to come and be on camera right now. All right, Leia, go ahead. Go down there. She's been laying on my feet the whole time, and now she wants to come up and be in my face. Okay, we want to say happy birthday to Frank Langella. He's the Tony Award-winning American actor who played Jara Essa in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, second season episodes The Homecoming, The Circle, and The Siege. But I'm not particularly remembering for that. I want to mention him for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. That was a great movie, if you remember it. And it did have a Star Trek actor in it. That's right. Tom Paris himself was in that movie. And so was What's Her Face and What's Her Face and What's Her Face. I'm drawing a blank right now. Leia is being a nuisance here and she's distracting me. But yeah, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, guilty pleasure. Loved it. And now we're going to get to some Klingons. I want to say Qapla' to Bob Miner, a retired stuntman, stunt actor, and stunt coordinator who played Borak in Star Trek Deep Space Nine's third season episode, the visionary. And there he is on the screen. Thank you so much to David. We also want to say happy birthday and kapla to Brett Porter. He's the actor who portrayed General Stex in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, the one-armed Klingon. I got to imagine that after he lost his arm, he wasn't of much use to the Klingon Empire and was probably thrown out of office in disgrace, because how can a one-armed Klingon wield a bat'leth?
I mean, I always wondered about that, Jim. I love that they show him because it's like, oh, he's a warrior and he's still alive. But like after we see Next Generation and we realize that Worf wants to die rather than be healed, wouldn't you think a Klingon that loses an arm would rather die than not be able to wield a bat'leth?
I would think that would be the case. I would also think they could have grown him another arm by that point, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see his arm get blown off. That was neat. So, anyways, so happy birthday to Brett Porter, General Stex from Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. We also want to say I got a lot of great Klingons here. We want to say kapla to Peter Henry Schroeder. He's the actor who played the Klingon Chancellor in Star Trek Enterprise first season episode, Broken Bow. This Chancellor is unnamed. I searched and searched and searched to try to find his name. It's not out there. But this would be the first appearance of a Klingon Chancellor ever on Star Trek. This would be the first time that Star Trek visited the Klingon homeworld. And so even though he doesn't have a name, and one of my rules is if the character doesn't have a name, they don't get mentioned. But he's the Klingon Chancellor, for God's sakes. I had to mention him. So happy birthday to Peter Henry Schroeder. And now we have an interesting one. Here we go, guys. We want to say kapla to Damon Runyon. And he is the actor who portrayed the Klingon leader Ujili in Star Trek Discovery's episode Battle of the Binary Stars, Lethe, Will You Take My Hand, and Point of Light. I think that's how you pronounce that. It's hard to say.
They never say his name on screen, but that's my best guess.
Yeah, he's the head of the House of Mokai. And yeah, I'm not even going to try it again.
Did they not get mentioned either?
Well, maybe we'll make that a new rule. If it's not pronounceable, they don't get mentioned. But I just thought he was great. I loved the Discovery Klingons, and we're going to have a discussion about that in next week's episode when we talk about Star Trek Discovery, because the giant freaking robot has this, I don't know what you call it, this hatred of Discovery, and they put out this whole thing about how it was erased. And we're going to talk about that in great length and great detail next week. But at any rate, happy birthday to Damon Runyon, the head of the House of Mokai. And that wraps up our birthdays, guys. And now it's time for our Star Trek news.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Incoming transmission.
Enter authorization code. Command codes verified. Define parameters of program. Level 9 authorization required. Specify parameters. Transfer of data is complete. Blank alert. Blank alert.
Okay, it's odd that I get to start the first story, but yeah, this week I have the first story. And I want to try to squeeze in as many of these Section 31 stories as we can, because we're quickly winding down to Section 31. So, Section 31 director says the streaming movie is a new flavor of Star Trek with a surprise twist. With Lower Decks ending, the next entry for the franchise arrives in just a few weeks with the release of Star Trek Section 31, the movie, which will stream on Paramount Plus in January and Sky Showtime in February. Michelle Yeoh reprises her Star Trek Discovery role as Emperor Philippa Georgiou, who joins Section 31, the secret division of Starfleet. According to the brief synopsis, tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets, she also must face the sins of her past. Dun dun dun. Here is what Otunde Asame had to say. We tried to come out and go big. Big stakes emotionally, big stakes for the character in our story. In comparison to many other series that have come in this era, because we all love to compare, the stakes are profound as any that we've seen, but with particular character-driven twists that I hope will surprise and delight people who watch the movie. Part of what makes this movie so unique is that it's tied inextricably to Giorgio. She got a fantastic backstory, which is epic in its breadth. It spans time and space in ways that most characters don't have the opportunity to explore. Like Christmas morning, presents for our audience. Having the opportunity to work with Michelle again has been pure, unmitigated joy. I'm excited for viewers to experience a hard-hitting, action-packed, and emotional journey through a part of the Star Trek universe that hasn't been explored before. It's a new flavor of ice cream, another color of the rainbow that is a fresh fit in this universe. In addition to talking about how the movie was developed and what fun they had doing the fight scenes with Michelle Yeoh, there was some discussion of the setting of the movie. We know the movie is set primarily in the so-called lost era of the 24th century, but the film will include multiple time periods, hinting that Hardwick's long-lived Alec could pop up in various times. That right there, that sentence is the one that got me right there, because he's basically saying that the entire movie is not going to take place in one place and that we could see some time travel shenanigans going on, and that this character Alec, who I believe is the leader of Section 31, we don't really know a lot about him, but I think he's the leader of Section 31 because in the trailer, he's the one that comes to her. You know, I got to see this movie because I'm so confused, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that at the end of season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, Giorgio was invited into and accepted her role in Section 31. Am I wrong in saying that?
End of season 1, beginning of season 2.
Yeah, she gets the black badge and is a
Yes.
member of Section 31, and we see her as a member of Section 31. She shows up and stops the Klingon Civil War as a member of Section 31. So she's already there. So I'm confused as to when exactly. Well, of course, wait a minute. We got to remember that Carl did send her back to I don't know.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to have to wait and see it. I am psyched for this movie. I love Michelle Yeoh, and I'm so excited to see her kick somebody in the face who's standing behind her. And I'm looking forward to seeing this movie. I'm just confused.
I think Carl sent her to an alternate universe.
I think that
One of those
that may
fissures.
be. I think that could very well be. Yeah. But anyways, that's my Section 31 story. And David, you actually have a story for us this week, huh?
Yeah. So, Zoe Saldana addresses long Star Trek 4. Wait, we need to do this quickly. Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy star Zoe Saldana, I think that's how you pronounce her
It's
name?
just Saldana. Yeah.
Saldana, has expressed concerns about the prolonged delay of Star Trek 4, suggesting time might be running out for the original cast return to space. During an interview with Deadline promoting her Golden Globe-nominated performance in Elmelia Perez, Saldana addressed the status of the long-awaited sequel to 2016 Star Trek Beyond. Nothing that she feels like the cast, herself included, could end up doing too old to reprise their Star Trek roles if they wait too much longer to make the film. Unless they did some sort of time-traveling shenanigans, maybe? Okay, so... I wish... Okay, this is her quoting. I wish we were able to do it sooner rather than later, she said. And then she also quotes, I like a lot of us to have a full head of gray hair, so we need to do this quickly. Yeah, okay, I did read it right. Okay. If this is the same cast, they're going to reprise it again. So she wants a full head of gray hair?
No, she says, I feel like a lot of us have a full
Oh,
head of gray hair.
okay. I missed that word.
So
Sorry.
they already have a full head of gray hair, and so they need to do it quickly.
Nice, yeah. Well, dye could fix that up. But anyway, Saldana also expressed interest in further sorry, I think I skipped a line. No, okay. Expressed interest in further exploring her character's relationship with Spock. Should Star Trek 4 actually get made? It's been a minute since I recommended Star Trek and all the characters' journey, but her and Spock were always sort of drawn to each other. It just makes sense to see what the next step in the relationship and their work relationship as well, she said. The first two J.J. Abrams dedicated Star Trek films were massive box office successes, and with Star Trek Into Darkness still holding the distinctions of being the highest grossing film in the franchise history. However, Star Trek Beyond was considered a financial disappointment, potentially causing Paramount to question future installments. The project had faced numerous setbacks since its initial announcement. The original concept would have featured Chris Pine's James T. Kirk meeting his father, played by Chris Hemsworth. Multiple directors, including S.J. Clarkson, Noah Holloway, and Matt Shakman, have joined and subsequently departed the project, with the latest version bringing in screenwriter Steve Yockey of Supernatural and Doom Portal fame in March. So yeah, what do you think, guys? Is this taking too long?
Well,
Yeah, I think the ship has sailed.
Yeah, the window's passed. They
I
should just
think
give it up.
they had the chance. They didn't do it. It's over. I think they have to go in a different direction now. But let me preface it by saying I think that cast was phenomenal. I think the casting could not have been more spot on. Carl Urban as McCoy was spectacular. Chris Pine as Kirk, they were all great, and I had no trouble just accepting them as they were, and I would have loved to see one or two more movies featuring them because they were such a great ensemble cast. The the loss of Anton Yelchin was terrible and tragic, but I kind of hope that they would slide Jayla into that role. I think a lot of fans liked her character and would have liked to see her carry on. But I think they waited too long, and I think the interest is gone now in seeing that cast return. And I think they have to go in a different direction and, do something else. It's just my opinion. And that's not because I'm a hater of the Kelvin universe, because I'm not, or that I hate JJ, because I don't. I just think the ship has sailed, and it's been too long, and they're all doing other projects now, which is going to drive the cost up. And one of the things that Paramount always has in the back of their minds is how much money can we make? And one of the reasons why Star Trek Beyond, they had to pay huge monies for their salaries, which all goes into the budget. And let's face it, the movie wasn't that great, not because of the actors. It just wasn't, the villain just didn't carry it. It just wasn't a good movie. So yeah, I'm sad to see it go. Absolutely. But I think they got to go in a different direction. Just my opinion.
I mean, Jim, if you look at the original movies, so Star Trek the Motion Picture, 79. Wrath of Khan, 3 years later. Star Trek 2, 2 years later. Star Trek 4, 2 years later. Star Trek 5, 3 years later. Star Trek 6, 2 years later. There has been 8.5 years between the last movie and now. And if they signed everybody up to do a movie, it would be another year and a half from now before it would come out. That would be almost 10 years since the last movie. That ship has sailed, man. Nobody wants another Kelvin Universe movie, despite all of the things that you're saying, which was that the cast was amazing, and there was no question that their chemistry was great, that the loss of Anton Yelchin didn't keep the fourth movie from being made, but of course, that does give people pause. They're just not really sure what to do with that role right now. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the window is past, unfortunately, which is too bad because I would have loved to have seen, maybe 5 movies. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
then
it
go on
defeats
to a
their
TNG.
purpose. They recast them all with younger actors and relatively unknown. Of course, who knew that Chris Hemsworth was going to be Chris Hemsworth? But at any rate, they had young actors, a young cast, and I think they envisioned, squeezing 5 or 6 movies out of it. But they didn't get beyond 3, so
In fact,
unfortunate.
I think I remember skimming through Facebook and seeing a mention that people thought the Tarantino movie was dead.
Well, I mean, that would have been a great way to inject some new life into it, man. Like to do an R-rated Star Trek movie. I remember when we talked about that, and I was all about it. I was all about the option of that, especially after we saw that the USS Callister, that episode of Broken Mirror.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, they could do rated R Star Trek. That'd be awesome.
Pulp Fiction me, baby. Pulp Fiction me. No, I think that Star Trek movies are now Section 31 is going to be on Paramount Plus. It doesn't actually count, in my opinion, because it's not hitting the silver screen. As soon as they put a movie out to the general public, it's a really slippery slope to walk, guys. I mean, not for us, but if you were sitting home and you weren't a Star Trek fan and you're looking at all these Marvel movies and you're looking at all these movies, what's going to make you decide to go and see Star Trek? It has to compete with all these other movies, and that's where it gets tricky. Like I said, they wanted Marvel Universe quality money to come in on a Star Trek movie, and I just don't think that's possible. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. I mean, they got lucky with Into Darkness, which oddly enough made more money than anything, but fans hated on it. But the general public liked it. So what do you do? What do you do? I think their idea of doing movies on Paramount Plus might be the future of Star Trek, because it gives them the ability to do, I'm just throwing these out there, a Captain Sulu thing or a Captain Worf thing that they know they have a built-in audience for, and that they're not going to be competing with Captain America, the Red Hulk, Wicked 2, that kind of stuff. Just my opinion. And I don't work for Paramount. So, Eric, you get the next story, guy. I put this one in just for you particularly.
Well, I appreciate that. Otherwise, why bother? Star Trek's Kate Mulgrew reveals conditions for live-action Janeway return. Since her first appearance in Star Trek Voyager, which ran for 7 seasons, Mulgrew has appeared in the video game Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, the 2002 film Star Trek Nemesis, which features a young Tom Hardy as the antagonist, the video game Star Trek Legacy, and most recently has appeared in 40 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy, as well as its video game spin-off Star Trek Prodigy Supernova. The actress was asked about her thoughts on the possibility of coming back as Janeway in live action. Quote, "I just had dinner with Alex Kurtzman the other night, and we talked about this," Mulgrew explained. It would have to be impeccable. It would have to be without hubris. It would have to be authentic. And it would have to be so bloody good that I would in no way question any element of it. I mean, to come back after 25 years into a character that was once, that I'm not only revered by me, but loved by me, I have to take care of my character. So I've just said to Alex, I love her. She will never be misused, but she will be exalted. And the writer has to be somewhere from the heavens. So we'll keep this conversation alive, but so far it's a conversation. When asked if her love for the character meant she'd only come back if Janeway was the lead, Mulgrew laughed. Are you kidding? What do you mean? She asked. She would have to be central to whatever she's doing. Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, why bother? She was central for 7 years. Why should it change? Right? Completely agree with her. And this is what I love about Kate Mulgrew, man. She has the utmost respect for high quality things, right? She's not willing to do anything unless it's of the utmost quality. She says, impeccable, without hubris. She uses all of these great phrases that just really take it from average to exceptional. And I completely agree with her. I wouldn't want to see Janeway any other way because she's the type of character that demands that. And Kate Mulgrew is the type of actress that demands that. So pretty interesting. I don't know that we're ever going to get to see her live action, but man, would that be super cool. And obviously, she would have to be in a senior role. We've already seen Admiral Janeway, so it'd probably be Admiral Janeway. But I could see it maybe happening if they sort of took the same bent as what they took with Star Trek Picard, right? We never thought that we would see Picard again. And here we get to see him as a 90-year-old guy doing his thing and still living his best life. So I think if they did something like that, they could get away with it. Otherwise, I'm happy with the Janeway that we've seen and had.
Yeah, I think she was great on Prodigy.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing about Prodigy was that she got to play a younger version of herself because of the hologram thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to take that and turn it into live action and actually use the actress, you have to deal with the fact that she's aged. You can't just do a de-aging wipe with the AI or something on her and make it a different kind of story. You would actually have to address the fact that the actress is more aged and that has to play into the actual plot of the story. And I just don't see that happening. So
I got Anakin, I got Leia. They're just driving me crazy. Yeah, I just something I wanted to mention. Fans, I don't know why fans. Why is it that we always have to revisit things we've already visited? Why do we have to have Picard series? Why do we need a Janeway series? Why do we have to keep going backwards? Why do we have a Pike series? Well, that's not a great example, but why do we always have to go back to what we already have rather than going forward to something that we haven't seen like we did with Discovery? Why is that?
Legacy.
Well, again, a
People want legacy.
Yeah, but that's just a rehashing of characters we've seen already. I mean, why can't we get something new? Why do fans always want to fall back on something familiar?
Because I like that comfort food. They don't want to try that new item on the menu. They want to have that old standby that they've had every time they've come to that restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim, I almost wonder if part of it is the Star Trek franchise has had a history of these kind of big gaps, right? We had the original series, and then there was a big gap, and then we had the movies and stuff, but even then, there was a gap, and then Next Generation. And remember the very beginning of Next Generation? What did we get in season 1? We essentially got TOS style stories, TOS style sets. Season 1 of Next Generation wasn't that different from the original series, and it wasn't until the show kind of found its own footing and evolved that it got interesting. Then we head into Deep Space Nine, where they say, okay, what if we take it and we put it on a station? We can tell all sorts of different types of stories. And so that was a different thing. That was something fresh and new. So they did actually like something fresh and new. I would argue that Star Trek Voyager, as good as it was and as much as I love it, was essentially the same as Next Generation in a lot of ways, right? Different aliens, different stuff, but like the questions are the same. The characters are different. You got different types of characters. You can tell slightly different stories when you're 70,000 light years from home and that kind of thing. The thing that really gets me is, why did people hate Discovery so much? And we've talked about this a million times, and I don't think that we need to totally rehash it here, but I kind of agree with Charles that we're in an era where societally things are constantly changing and people are just kind of freaked out by the fact that everything is changing and they can't even follow along with what's happening. So what do they want when they watch their television? They want comfort food. They want reality television that is basically a reflection of their own daily lives. You look at most of the shows that are coming out now, and they're usually some version of something that's already been out or combining a couple of other things that have been out in the past into a new package. The most interesting shows these days push that, or they push the character interactions and they don't worry so much about whether the plot's been told or not. They make you fall in love with the characters and they show you what can happen that's really cool with the characters. I just wish that people were able to see past, different looking Klingons, past Michael Burnham crying in an episode, past all of these things that they say that they hate about Discovery, because as I'll say the same thing that I said years ago when it first came out, I believe that in 10 or 20 years, people are going to look back at Discovery and they're going to be like, you know what? That was actually pretty cool. They actually were doing something different, and we got $12 million per episode style special effects and soundtracks and that kind of stuff. What's not to like about that? It's just that people weren't quite ready for it when it came out.
Well, we were talking last week when you guys weren't with us. We talked a little bit about something, maybe the USS Stargazer. That way we have a Picard, but we have 25 years of Picard's life that we know nothing about. We don't know anything about the Stargazer. We know that Beverly Crusher met Jack Crusher. We know that. But we don't know a lot about it. We know about the Battle of Maxia with the Ferengi. Yeah, we don't know anything about it. So if people want something that's familiar, if the studios want to go in familiar territory, why not recast Patrick Stewart as a much younger character when he first became a captain, and then say, okay, you guys want something you're familiar with? Here's Picard, here's the Stargazer, but guess what? We don't know any of the other crew, we don't know the stories, we don't know the aliens, but it's familiar enough to attract people that want familiarity.
And Jim, that's exactly what they're doing with Section 31. They're
You
taking
know?
it back to the 23rd century. They're showing us Rachel Garrett. They're showing us characters from Discovery that people like because they kick people in the face behind them.
Oh, that was so
It's like-
awesome.
Well,
However, now, I mean, well, from what we just heard from what Jim read, was that apparently going to be a time traveling thing. So it's going to be all over the place.
Well, Carl is involved, and Carl can do anything.
Yeah.
That's the Guardian
point
of
is
Forever
that they're
for
still
people.
going to be showing some stuff with which we're already familiar, but filling in the gaps. That's the point of what I said.
well, Strange
Right.
New Worlds. That's what Strange New Worlds is. We knew about Pike. We knew about Spock.
Yep.
We knew about Una. Let's rehash and kind of merge from from Strange New Worlds to TOS. There's enough similarities that people recognize it. They're able to deal with it. They can find comfort in it.
Well, let's
You
see
can
what
have
happens.
comfort food.
You're not eating moldy cheese again, are you?
I hope it's not moldy. It's been inside a bag for a
I
while.
hope it's not moldy too. So we have Starfleet Academy on the not too distant future. Well, year and a half away. We have an unnamed comedy which Beckett Mariner is working on. Tawny Newsome. We have Strange New Worlds, 2 more seasons. A Section 31 movie which is coming out shortly. And that's all we have on the docket for new Star Trek. And possibly a movie, maybe, if we're lucky, at some point. And that's it
Well,
for Star Trek.
Yeah. I guess we could
But
always just...
we do have an awesome podcast, Trek Talking, which you guys can tune into and listen to. So, well, you know what time it is, guys?
Is it time for the outro?
Yes, it is. It's that time. It's there we go. We went through a whole, can you believe it? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we did miss Paul, but he should be back with us next week, so they'll have that. So I just want to let you guys know we're going to be doing Star Trek Lower Decks finale next week, the new Next Generation, It's going to be a time travel thing. We got a lot to talk about. You don't want to miss that one because it involves Klingons, Discovery Klingons, one of my favorite topics. So you definitely want to tune in next week. And if you're a fan of Voyager, you don't want to miss the 16th because we're going to have Mr. Tim Russ here, Tuvok himself. And you can be pretty sure that we're going to talk about Tuvix. I'm sure somebody's going to ask about Tuvix. Anyways, maybe. We'll see. So we're going to have a lot of fun with Tim Russ. So please head over to trektalking.com and record your question. We will play it on the show and get an answer from him. So check that out and go and check out our Patreon page. For only $2, there's all kinds of great stuff there that you guys can get in on. And we're always adding more and more and more stuff. So please do that if you can.
And Tim Russ will be on video with us, right, on Patreon?
That's right. You can join us. You can be one of our video people here. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Eric for hanging out and Trek Talking with us. Thank you, Eric.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much.
And I want to say thank you to David for the awesome slideshow. And you did a great job. You're definitely a miracle worker. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. It's been really fun.
And thank you so much to Charles as well for hanging out and Trek Talking with us. Thank you,
Fun.
Charles.
Always fun. Been missing talking Trek for a little while, so it's been great to doing it.
It has been. It seems like it's been forever, but it's only been a week. And I want to take this opportunity to make a very special happy birthday to my awesome wife, Karen, who just turned 58 on December 19th, and my incredibly awesome daughter, Jamie Lynn, who just turned 30 yesterday. So I've had a pretty busy week. So happy birthday to the ladies in my life. And of course, my dog, Leia, who just ran away here, who will actually be a year old next month. So a lot of birthdays going on in my household. My ladies are aging, but I am not. So that's pretty cool. I'm your most excellent host, Uncle Jim, saying, everybody, please stay safe and be good to each other. And remember, Star Trek fans are the best fans. Thank you for being a fan. Hailing frequencies are closed. Good night, everybody.
Live long and prosper.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
All stations, ready for departure, sir. Some problem, Riker?
Just hoping this isn't the usual way our missions will go, sir.
Oh, no, number one. I'm sure most will be much more interesting. Let's see what's out there. Engage.